Digital cameras are a fascinating piece of technology that everyone loves to handle. Various lenses, rolling the lens to change the aperture, framing the perfect shot, changing lenses, everything about digital camera is so lovely. In this video, we'll find out how these beautiful machines work. A digital camera works by focusing light through various lenses into a semiconductor sensor that converts light into electrons, and then the charge of these electrons is calculated and converted into binary and stored in an SD card. We will have a detailed look at this process while following the path of light in a camera by dissecting a digital camera and analyzing the function of every part. The process starts with the photographer looking at the scene through his viewfinder. Let's see what happens here.
The light enters the camera through the front light gathering elements. This part is constructed to capture the most light with the least distractions. Next, the light goes through the zoom elements. These are the lens clusters that zoom into the shot. Higher-end cameras have adjustable zoom lenses with which optical zoom can be adjusted manually by moving these lenses forward and backward. In normal digital cameras, the zoom elements are stationary and provide fixed optical zoom. Software zoom can be done by cropping into the image, but it comes with the cost of quality. Next, the light passes through the aperture ring. The lens aperture is located inside of the lens and adjusts to control the amount of light that passes through the lens and into the camera.
It is calibrated in f-stops, for example f15.6, f4, f2, etc. Here, lower numbers depict higher apertures, that is, higher openings, because the numbers are in denominators of the fraction, and in fractions, lower the denominator, higher the value.
So lower aperture lets more light into the camera. This is done for low light photography to have maximum light.
But lower aperture comes with a trade-off. Since more light is entering the camera, it will lessen the depth of field.
Depth of field is the sharpness of image background. So when the camera is set at a lower aperture, more light enters the camera, lessening the depth of field, therefore blurring the image background. Hence, to achieve maximum background sharpness, higher aperture is used. Higher aperture will allow the least light into the camera, increasing the depth of field to render the sharpest background.
Aperture also affects the shutter speed. Shutter speed is the speed at which the camera shutter opens and closes. Higher shutter speed ensures the instant capture of the scene. Instant capture is essential in situations where the scene won't last. Bird photography is an example where instant capture is required. Since smaller aperture lets more light into the sensor, the shutter does not have to stand open for a long time to capture. So smaller aperture gives faster shutter speeds and vice versa. Due to this reason, wildlife photographers use a smaller aperture. Aperture can be set with buttons on the control panel in the digital camera.
Next, the light heads into the focusing elements. These are a series of lenses and mirrors that can be controlled, that is, moved front and back with the focusing ring to click a properly focused shot.
Modern camera makers figured out how to motorize the lenses in the focusing system. Enter autofocus. Modern DSLRs have this autofocus feature where an autofocus processor reads the scene and automatically adjusts the lens to obtain the best focus. It may take 5 minutes to properly explain how this autofocus processor works, so let's reserve that for another video.
Next, the light gets to the reflex mirror.
DSLR's expansion is digital single reflex camera. The camera lends a part of its name from this part, the reflex mirror.
The reflex mirror is a motorized mirror placed at a 45-degree angle. This reflex mirror relays or diverts the light rays from the lens towards the viewfinder. When the photographer presses the shutter, this reflex mirror gets lifted to let the light into the image sensor. So from here on, two instances may occur. One, when the reflex mirror is locked to divert light to the viewfinder, and two, when the reflex mirror gets lifted to direct the light into the image sensor. First, let's look at what happens when the reflex mirror is locked at its position. The reflex mirror diverts the light towards the viewfinder. After being reflected from the reflex mirror, light first reaches the condenser lens. A condenser lens concentrates light into a dense beam to create a clearer image in the viewfinder. Next, light reaches the focusing screen. A focusing screen is a flat translucent material that is placed between the series of lenses and viewfinder.
A focusing screen allows displaying the focused version of the frame in the viewfinder. There are various types of focusing screens to select according to the scene.
Plain focusing screens are preferred for low light scenes because low light scenes are already dark and having patterns in the focusing screen will further darken the scene. Grid-edged focusing screens are preferred for an architectural scene so that it will be easier to align the architectural aspects with straight lines for a perfect frame. Split focusing screens are used for fast focusing as the patterns on the screen aid focusing.
Depending on the camera model, it can be more or less easy to replace the focusing screen.
From focusing screen, the light heads to the pentaprism. Pentaprism is placed in cameras to bend and direct the light from the scene to the viewfinder. After being reflected from pentaprism, light enters the viewfinder. The viewfinder is a piece of glass or plastic that can display a preview of the shot.
By looking at the viewfinder, the photographer will frame the shot, after which he will press the shutter. Until now, we have completed analyzing how light travels from the scene to the viewfinder.
This is one light path inside the camera. Another path is light heading to the image sensor when the shutter is pressed to lift the reflex mirror.
We will explore this in part 2 of the video. Part 2 is coming out tomorrow evening at 5 here at TechWithYolo. Stay tuned, like, subscribe and share if you like my content. It's me YOLO and I'll see you in the next one. Ta-da!